How did you get from this point to a 28-count indictment?
Right. Thank you. So in 2007 is when I lost custody. Obviously, it hit me extremely hard. I knew my daughter was being abused. Abused how? She was being sexually fondled by her father's nephew, her cousin Jacob.
How old is he?
That's the problem, because it was child upon child, and the more that I tried to advocate and get assistance for her, many professionals would not consider it a flag for CPS, would not consider it criminal because of the age. Jacob was 3, maybe 3.5 years my daughter's senior. So when my daughter was 3, which is basically when I learned of this, he would only be 6, 6.5. So that's, a child. However, Jacob has some type of developmental disability. So sometimes you might see children who, I don't know if it's Down syndrome, but there are children who obviously have some type of developmental condition where they might fondle themselves publicly. They might be extra affectionate and obviously do not recognize boundaries, okay? So understand that if my daughter was 3 years old and she's being bathed in the same bathtub with a 6-year-old boy who has these types of issues, something might happen. And when my daughter then is 4 and this other boy is 7, or when my daughter is 5 or 6, now 8, they are still having these children sleep together. They are still having, I don't know if they're necessarily having the children bathe together, but actually my daughter did confess on a CPS video at a CAC center that her father and neighbor do force her, in essence, to shower, not with this Jacob, but now with a older female neighbor who she also has admitted to fondling her. So you have a situation where the father and sister, so my ex-husband and his sister, because it's his sister's child, knew that there was play fondling in the bathtub and in beds, because whenever my daughter would sleep over the cousin's house, they would share a bed because there were no other beds in the house and they felt that they were children, yada yada. But my ex-husband, who again the court psychiatrist states does not recognize inappropriate behavior, my daughter was continuously going to him and she was explaining to me, I'm telling, Daddy that Jacob's doing these things, and Daddy says, that he'll talk to Aunt Molly and make Aunt Molly, punish Jacob or make sure that Jacob doesn't do it. But that's as far as it would go, and it would continuously happen. And I could see that my daughter was showing very strange behaviors, getting progressively upset with the fact that nothing was being done, especially as she got older, and so did this boy Jacob. There's also, Jacob is one of 3. There's also an older cousin who was 13, 14, 16, 17 years old at the time, and my daughter also expressed that this elder cousin...
13, 14, 16, or 17, is that
yes,
one age?
This is the progression. So in other words, if this started when my daughter was 3, and she's now 8, you understand that we're going through maturity, maturation. So the older boy, so I'm saying, let's say if my daughter's 3 and the older boy's 13, my daughter was saying how this older child was not sexually abusing her, but he was physically roughhousing, abusing her, locking her into rooms, forcing her to remain under dining room tables, and if she tried to get out from under the chair, he would kick her, these kinds of things. She also expressed that her father was physically abusing her and primarily neglecting her, where if she needed something to eat, if she needed something to drink, he would not get it for her. This is also a little child that had injured herself plenty of times from having to get a chair and climb into high cabinets, or that needed to fend for herself and got a finger slammed in a door trying to, all the time, which is why the court saw the need for protection, for conviction, and for supervision. And this is who they give this child to, sole custody.
Are you saying they gave the sole custody to your ex-husband after all of these allegations were proved?
Yes, 100%. 100%. All in court record. So you can see the evidence, you can see the conviction, you can see the protective orders awarded, you can see the supervised visitation.
Okay, let's move forward then.
Okay, so like I said, in 2007, when I lost, I became obviously very upset. I got an attorney, actually went to the a Jewish community because of the anti-Semitic remarks on the verdict, and the Jewish community recommended an attorney, and the attorney said, this has to be ignorance. This is beyond what, this is beyond an appeal. Something's completely wrong here, and rather than spend $10,000 to $15,000 on taking it to the appellate, writing an argument, I'm just gonna motion the courts for a modification, and we'll simply go and we'll have hearings to explain and clarify. Yes, the genealogy is correct, etc. So that's what I thought, and in 2007, rather than the courts expressing any wrongdoing or ignorance, they actually became more hostile, and they actually started ordering they placed hostile orders on the record that were persecutory. In other words, if I stated that I was a religious Jewess, which we then validified with genealogy records, and that I shut down for the Sabbath because of candlelighting, then they would order that I was required to pick up my daughter at a particular time that conflicted with the candlelighting time. Or if we corrected the modifications to enable me some type of Jewish observance, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which we literally had to argue public policy to get, that they would still have within the order stipulations that would conflict because of timing, which they clearly knew. And what again happened, like I said, is rather than say, oh no, this isn't anti-Semitism, and try to express, in all fairness, what needed to be, we clearly saw that it actually was more, it seemed, anti-Semitic, and it became more hostile. So, the Jewish community, some very, very well-known rabbis, actually I was being counseled and was assisted by, there's a yeshiva, there's a university called Ner Israel. And the president of Ner Israel, his name is Rabbi Sheftel Neuberger, is very close friends with the attorney that was recommended to me during this modification hearing process, Avram Kowalski. And I started having some problems with Avram Kowalski, which I shouldn't get into right now. I don't know, probably should edit, but I'm going to have to say because I just said it, but I was not paying Avram. The Jewish community, which wanted to know if indeed this was as anti-Semitic as it read, wanted Avram to go in as a favor, rectify the matter very quickly, and if the matter was not rectified, and if Avram got back with them that it was as anti-Semitic as it read, then the community was willing to raise funds and get behind it for support that they would contribute to my retainer. Rather, Avram went back to the community, told them that it was not anti-Semitic, told them that that the modification hearings would be and were going successfully, and that it was really the fact that I was indeed emotionally unstable and potentially bipolar and whatnot. Please understand that during this time I had a psychiatrist, because I had gone to different domestic violence agencies, and the domestic violence agencies recommended that I get a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist did admit that I did have some anxiety, but that clearly I was sound and stable, other than needing some minor anxiety medications, probably because of what my ex-husband and the courts were doing. So it was stated on record that I was bipolar by the courts, yet my psychiatrist of over 3 years stated he ruled out bipolar and clearly what my diagnosis was. In the court verdict, it states that my psychiatrist's diagnosis was superficial. That is the word verbatim, that it was superficial. So when my ex-husband and Avram Kowalski and all the modifications hearings got heavy, Avram started to sexually proposition me. And Avram not just propositioned, there were a couple times that he actually did assault me, so much so that I contacted some sexual assault centers, had been working with one called the Awareness Center, the founder, Vicki Pollan. So there are people that are aware, but I never called the police, in part because I did not have money at the time. I had refinanced my house, gone out on a limb. I was devastated from the custody arrangements. Understand, my daughter continued to come back to me injured and abused. And so now she's not just getting sexually assaulted and physically assaulted, but now she also has lost her mommy, and the only stable, nurturing adult who was able to somewhat heal her wounds and comfort her during that abuse, which was now removed. So she very rapidly started deteriorating. And when I went to Near Israel, because I said, look, you are the top of our people in this community. Avram Kowalski, you know Avram Kowalski, this is a fact. This is what he's doing. I need help. And my daughter surely needs help.